Look, there is something genuinely strange about going back to a game from 2016 and realizing it doesn't feel old. Not just playable old, not nice for nostalgia old, but legitimately fresh in ways that some games from 2 years ago can't manage. I ended up back in Oros, the Stone Age valley of Far Cry Primal, basically on a whim. It was on sale. I remembered the launch discourse being kind of a mess, and I wanted to see if it held up. What I found was a game that Ubisoft accidentally future-proofed way harder than they probably intended. A survival light action game that runs at 60 frames on current consoles now, looks better than it has any right to, and offers something almost no other open-world game is doing in 2026. Hi folks, welcome to Crypto Mac, and today I want to talk about why I played Far Cry Primal in 2026, and why it honestly kind of blew my mind. The biggest thing that made this replay happen was a free update. Ubisoft, in January of 2026, dropped a patch for Far Cry Primal on PS5 and Xbox Series X, unlocking 60 frames per second and pushing the resolution up to 4K, and I cannot overstate how much of a difference this makes. The original 2016 release on PS4 and Xbox One ran at 30 frames, which was fine at the time, but going back to that now feels like trying to run through mud. The 60 frames per second update transforms the moment-to-moment feel of combat. The responsiveness of aiming your bow, the smoothness of riding a saber-tooth into an enemy camp, all of it just snaps into place, and I played this on my PS5. And the combination of the higher frame rate and the 4K image makes the lush forests of Oros, the misty mornings, the firelight flickering on cave walls, all of it look genuinely stunning for a game that is a decade old. Ubisoft has been doing this for a bunch of their older titles. Far Cry 4, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, even the original Division got the same treatment. And it is the right way to treat a back catalog. You don't need a full remaster, you just need the game to run properly on modern hardware. And Primal runs like a dream now, but performance is just the door. What got me to stay in Oros for 30 plus hours is the setting. Far Cry Primal is set 12,000 years ago in the fictional valley of Oros, somewhere in prehistoric Europe. You play as Takar, a hunter from the Wenja tribe, and your tribe has been scattered, your people are dying, and you are at the absolute bottom of the food chain. The game strips away almost everything we associate with the Far Cry series. No guns, no vehicles, no radios, no wingsuits, no exploding barrels conveniently placed near outposts. You have a club, a bow, a spear, and later on a few other primitive tools. The entire weapon wheel is made of rocks and sticks, and somehow it works better than almost any shooter from that era. The bow in particular feels incredible, with a very real arrow trajectory and travel time that forces you to lead your shots and account for distance. The first time I hit a moving target from about 50 meters away, I actually felt like I had earned something. The other thing that sets Primal apart is the animal taming. Takar has a special gift, the ability to befriend and command the beasts of Oros. You can tame wolves, cave bears, saber-toothed cats, even a badger that just goes completely berserk on anything in its path. And your companion isn't just a cosmetic pet, it fights alongside you, scares off enemies, and can be directed to attack specific targets. The moment you tame a saber-tooth and ride it into an enemy outpost, fire raining down, your owl scouting from above, your bear mauling a guy in the corner, you realize that no other Far Cry game has ever managed to replicate this specific kind of chaos. It is low-tech, but high drama, and the predator-prey dynamic in Oros means you are never the scariest thing in the valley. A pack of wolves can ruin your day in seconds. A mammoth will just step on you. And the first time a cave bear comes charging out of the brush while you are low on health, your bow is broken and your saber-tooth is on cooldown. You will feel genuine panic. Now, I am not going to sit here and pretend Far Cry Primal is a perfect game. It is absolutely not. The story is, to put it charitably, not the reason you play this game. The main narrative is incredibly simple. Bad tribe, other bad tribe, you need to unite your people and defeat them. That is basically the whole thing. The characters speak a reconstructed primitive language based on Proto-Indo-European, which is a cool touch for immersion, but it also means that every conversation is just subtitled exposition that you will probably forget 10 seconds after it happens. There is no Voss. There is no pagan Min. There is no charismatic villain to hate or quote or obsess over. The bad guys are just mean, and they wear different face paint. That's fine for a game that is mostly about stabbing things and petting animals, but if you come to Primal expecting the kind of narrative punch that Far Cry 3 delivered, you will be disappointed. And the repetitive critique that haunted the game at launch, it is still here. The core loop of go to new area, clear outposts, collect resources, upgrade village, repeat, does not change dramatically across the 40 or so hours it takes to see everything. By hour 20, you have seen most of what the game has to offer mechanically. The difference is that in 2026, I found myself caring about that less than I expected. There is something almost meditative about Primal when you stop trying to clear every icon off the map and just let yourself exist in Oros. The world is genuinely alive in a way that few open-world games manage. Animals hunt each other. Tribes fight over territory. Random events unfold around you without any scripted hand-holding. The PC Gamer review from 2016 mentioned a moment where they saw a bear on fire running through the forest while a group of hunters chased it, and that is the kind of emergent, unscripted nonsense that happens all the time in Primal. You don't need a deep story when your world is this good at creating its own drama. One thing I completely missed in my first playthrough back in 2016 was survival mode. Ubisoft added this for free after launch, and I honestly think it should have been the default experience. Survival mode strips away the HUD, removes fast travel, makes resources scarcer, and turns every night cycle into a genuine threat. You have to plan your hunting trips, you have to manage your stamina, you have to sleep in caves to save your progress. And most importantly, you cannot just heal through every mistake. In survival mode, Primal transforms from a slightly weird Far Cry game into an actual honest-to-goodness survival experience. Every animal encounter matters because you cannot afford to waste resources. Every night feels dangerous because you cannot see anything without a torch, and a torch makes you visible to everything. It is tense in a way that the base game never quite managed, and it is absolutely the way I would recommend anyone play Primal in 2026. I want to address the elephant in the cave, the map controversy. When Primal launched, some fans were upset because the game's map of Oros was allegedly a reskin of Far Cry 4's Kyrat. And look, I have looked at both maps side by side, and yeah, the influence is pretty obvious. The general shape, the mountain ranges, the river placements, there is definitely some asset reuse happening. But here's the thing. I do not care. Oros feels nothing like Kyrat. Kyrat was a Himalayan-inspired landscape with prayer flags, golden temples, and a civil war in the background. Oros is a lush prehistoric wilderness covered in redwood forests, misty swamps, and icy tundras. The assets might be borrowed, but the atmosphere is completely its own. And honestly, Ubisoft has been reusing assets forever. That is how they ship games every single year. The difference is that Primal actually did something interesting with the recycled parts, turning a modern FPS map into a convincing Stone Age valley. I am not mad about it. I am more impressed that it worked as well as it did. Now, the modding community for Primal is also something worth mentioning for the PC players out there. Even in 2026, people are still tinkering with Oros. There are quality of life mods that auto-loot collectibles for you because nobody has time for that. And there are survival overhauls that make the game even more punishing than the official survival mode. If you are on PC, Far Cry Primal is a fantastic game to mod because the foundation is so solid. You can tweak the difficulty, add new creatures, adjust the lighting, and basically turn the game into exactly what you want it to be. The fact that a game from 2016 still has an active modding community in 2026 tells you something about how much people genuinely love this weird, ambitious experiment. I want to talk about the absence of guns for a minute because that was the biggest question mark when the game was announced. How do you make a Far Cry game without the thing Far Cry is best known for? The answer is that the Far Cry formula was never really about the guns. It was about the sandbox, the emergent chaos, the feeling of being dropped into a dangerous place and given just enough tools to survive. Primal proves that you can take away the helicopters and the rocket launchers and the grenades, replace them with clubs and spears and pet bears, and the core experience still works. In some ways, it works better. Without a sniper rifle, you cannot just cheese every outpost from 100 meters away. Without a wingsuit, you cannot just fly over every canyon. You have to engage with the world on its terms, up close, personal, and frequently covered in blood. It is a different kind of power fantasy. Less about overwhelming force and more about cunning and survival. And in 2026, after almost a decade of open-world shooters that all feel the same, Primal stands out precisely because it is the weird one that said no to guns. Now, the game is definitely not for everyone. If you need a strong story to motivate you, Primal will leave you cold. If you hate collectibles and busy work, you will bounce off the mid-game when the novelty wears off and the checklist becomes visible. And if you are someone who plays Far Cry for the over-the-top villains and the ridiculous set-piece moments, this game does not deliver that. But if you are someone who loves atmosphere, who wants a world that feels lived in and dangerous, who enjoys the quiet moments of planning a hunt as much as the chaos of the execution, Primal is a gem. It is the kind of game that gets better with age. Not worse, because the things it does well are timeless. The forests of Oros are still beautiful. The animal taming is still joyful. The first time you spear a mammoth to death is still exhilarating. And in 2026, with the 60 frames per second patch making everything feel smooth and responsive, it is the best time ever to give Far Cry Primal a real chance. I will be honest with you, I did not expect to like this game as much as I did on this replay. I remembered it being fine, a curious experiment, a weird footnote in the Far Cry series, but after spending 30 hours in Oros, after taming every animal, after clearing every outpost, after dying to saber-toothed cats more times than I want to admit, I think Far Cry Primal might actually be one of the most underrated games Ubisoft has ever made. It is not the biggest Far Cry. It is not the most polished Far Cry. But it is the most distinctive, the one that took the biggest risk, the one that created something that no other game has really tried to replicate since. And in an era where every open-world game feels like it was assembled from the same parts, Primal feels like a miracle. A weird, messy, beautiful miracle made of rocks and sticks and really aggressive bears. And that is all for today. Leave us a comment, let me know if you have gone back to Far Cry Primal recently, or if you think I am completely wrong about it. If you like this video, click like. If you are not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos from time to time, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So, click subscribe. Do not forget to enable notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.